Welcome to the Celebration of You. I'm your host, Holly Dowling. I'm thrilled to share with you incredible people from all over the world who are living and leading extraordinary lives. From overcoming immense adversity to discovering the secret sauce to leading with courage and grace. Their stories are going to bring you hope and inspiration. Now, let the stories begin. Welcome to another incredible show as I welcome an amazing guest. And I always like to pause before we dive in and just thank all of the incredible listeners out there. If it wasn't for you, the show would not continue to be all over the world. I understand we now might be in close to 160 countries. And I thank every human being out there, women, men, children, the families that listen to this show. And thank you for all the messages you send in of the stories that bring you hope and give you inspiration that you too can believe that you can overcome and you can live hopefully an extraordinary life. So on that note, the guest I have today, this has been a long time coming. I have been dreaming of having him on the show for probably maybe close to a year, definitely for the last 6-7 months. And I'm just going to warn you, you all know how I am. I start to cry, I get goosies, but I'll probably cry as I even introduce this person. So, because it's already happening. So, I'm about to introduce you to a human being that has been one of the greatest gifts in our family's life and most importantly, in my brother's life. Nacho Arenas, thank you for being with me today because you, my love, have been a gift in ways you don't even know. Thank you.
Thank you, and vice versa. I think that especially your brother and you, but your brother has been a gift in my life. Him and his family have made my life so much better.
Oh, well, if you look, I've already got little tears because I'm thinking about everything you just said is who you've been to them. And I think typically I would say, let's start with where we are today. And we're going to, because I want everybody to know Nacho, the man on this interview right now, this beautiful human being, is the reason, the filmmaker and producer of the most recent film, Creatures Here Under, and it's the movie that my brother wrote and he also plays in. And Nacho, the timing of us doing this is really serendipitous because Creatures Here Below, I literally just saw on the big screen at the film festival Friday night. I can't believe we're actually doing this and it's the same time I saw the movie and I was blown away. So thank you.
I'm so glad you got to see it. So first, just a quick correction: is All Creatures Here Below.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just
what did
saying,
I call it?
You call it Creatures Here Under or Creatures Here Below, or so it's All Creatures Here Below, and it's based on a script written by your brother David Desmarchin, and in which his performance as well as Karen Gillan's. Their performances are absolutely mind-blowing. Colin did a terrific job, Colin Shifley as a director. But to me, it's to this day, and I tend to read as much as I can, the good, the bad, anything, so I can become a better writer creatively, so I can get inspired and I can learn and grow. To this day, your brother has written the only script that I basically read back to back, because I read that script and it absolutely haunted me with love, with anger.
Yes.
But I totally connected with the story, and I just finished the script and I went back to page 1 and I reread it. And in many ways, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but in many ways, we're grateful that Samuel Goldwyn Films picked us up here in the States. I feel like I didn't protect the material enough to get the script and to be the film that I would have wanted it to be, because I just think the world of your brother as a writer, as an actor, and what he wrote was poetry to me on page, about two broken souls.
Yes.
And their journey.
And what I just learned something. I did not know till right now at this moment that is the first. And I know you read a lot of scripts, and as a writer and a film producer yourself, you've seen and heard and read many. but I never knew this is the first one you read start to finish and then read it again. And when I saw, he didn't tell me, right? He wanted me to be surprised. I didn't know the plot. I didn't know much about the characters. All he ever said is, get ready, sis. It is very intense. That's the words he would use. Nacho, sitting in that theater Friday night, it was riveting. The way it builds, the story, the way it unfolds, the words that I used, I think I even text you. I was like, this is not only magnificent and art, and I'm getting goosies as I say it, it is emotional at layers that we as human beings don't really tap into. It was disturbing, but disturbing in a good way because it rattles you and makes you go, oh my gosh, did this really just happen? And I'm getting goosies as I say it because then it keeps going. And I don't want to say too much because I want everybody to know it's hitting the theaters. Is it May 17th? Is that right, Nacho?
Correct. May 17th, we will be, actually, I think we're expanding. So when I signed a contract with Samuel Goldwyn Films, we're supposed to just go in New York, Chicago, and LA. And I think now we will have a presence in Philadelphia, Phoenix, Cleveland. There's maybe other cities that are going to pop up, and it's a very hard film. Listen, I'm not,
yes,
it's a film where the performances are absolutely mind blowing, but it's a hard film to take. Some people, and it's going to create the one thing that, to me, as a filmmaker, you should be able to go to the movie theaters and enjoy and be entertained, whether it's popcorn, whether it's a car chase, whether it's a blockbuster, whether it's a Marvel film or it's an indie film. But it has to move you one way or the other. This thing, I remember there was a Dogma film called The Celebration back in the day. I think it was Winter. I forgot the name. I forget the name of the director. Anyway, very successful film, and The Celebration. I really invite anyone to go watch. And I remember living in New York, going to the Paris Theater, which is right next to the Plaza in New York City. I went to see it, and it absolutely gutted me. And I walked out. And I needed to walk around Central Park at about midnight, which at the time always everyone said, oh, you don't want to walk Central Park at that time. I didn't care. I just needed to I need to almost reset my body, my breath, my everything, and wash and cleanse myself, because what I'd seen was so absolutely disturbing and engrossing that I'd been affected by it.
Wow.
And I think that All Creatures Here Below has the same effect, that the ending is that shocking. And I'm not saying it's liberating. It's not the type of film that you watch and you say, let's watch it again.
Right.
But it's a film. It's a film that basically, if we achieve to have you sitting in your seat for the following 5 minutes, listening to John Doe's beautiful rendition of Goodnight, Irene,
yes,
and you don't move, and you're like, what the heck just happened? Then I'm okay with it.
That's exactly what happened. Wait, the way you just said that and you articulated that, Nacho, at the end, I was so riveting. It was so riveting that I just sat there stunned. And all I kept, and I was bawling. I was tears streaming down my face. And I'm thinking, I didn't want to move. And honestly, and I told David afterwards, I said, I wanted this to keep going. I want a sequel. Isn't that crazy? Because I was so moved by the characters that I have all these like, please tell me this is like going to have another whole movie that's going to take this to another level. So that's kind of creepy too, isn't it? You got me riveted, you got me disturbed, and then I wanted more. What does that say, Nacho?
I don't think it's creepy. It just shows the humanity in you and the fact that, I think a lot of the things that connect us with with David, that you and me, but definitely, you've been in his life basically, since birth. So. For me, it's been the empathy that we have. Yes. So once we have that empathy, it allows us to help one another. But more importantly, sometimes what is a virtue is a flaw, because we hide. So sometimes whatever problems I have and issues I have, the way I deal with them is by actually, taking care of other things and other people.
So true.
And it's actually, I wouldn't say it's healthy, but it's and that's where you need help, and some people, friends, family, your wife, those who love you are there to help you. And sometimes you need some external. You need a psychiatrist or psychologist to speak with you and to tell you, and this is the way we are. And I think that we relate to these characters, and we want to see more. We want to know more because nobody's perfect. And
yes. And nobody's talking about it in a way that we need to, right? Like some of these issues are what's really going on in this world, and bringing it to the screen and making us see it through such a human lens, a real, right? I mean, we could go on and on. I have to take you though, because I have to know there's a passion in you. So you were born in Paris and you've had amazing experiences, right? Just knowing and learning about you and then how you met Perry. Where did the passion for film and writing start? Because you've got this dichotomy about you, Nacho. You actually played soccer in a D1 college. You were putting yourself through school. Then you got scholarships, for theater. I don't even know all the things you got. I just know you show up with the most humility and grace, and you're brilliant. And I want to know where this passion started, because it's amazing, the gift you have.
I don't know if the passion, I have a competitive gene. So and that showcased early on in sports. I don't know why I'm wired that way, because my sister and my brother are different. However, I grew up right on the outskirts of Paris. Both my parents are Spanish. My dad is from Madrid. My mom is from Saragossa, which is a pretty large city in Spain, located between Madrid and Barcelona. And I started basically going to public school, which was the school outside in the projects. So where my escape was soccer. Every year when you play in that team and you play in Europe, you basically can make two teams. You make the A squad or the B squad. Every September you have tryouts, and it's irreverent of where you played the year before. And so I would be usually in the A squad, and I would go up. And mind you, it was also an escape, and that's important because my brother and my sister were kind of like stuck at home, and I was for practices at that point it was on Wednesday night, Friday nights, and on Sunday I'd be out on the soccer field, so away from home. So when you're away from home, what you don't see never happens.
Yeah, true.
And so I was basically in a veil. And my focus was basically the soccer field, do as much and have fun and be with my friends. Everyone in the team and in the team that I played, we didn't come from great social status and money or anything. It was more different ethnicities. I had friends who were Muslims, friends who were Jews, Black, from Northern Africa. And we just loved it. I never really, the funny thing, because I really consider France. I love France, but I think that France is a country that has deep-rooted racism and anti-Semitism that needs to be guarded and needs to be basically controlled. But growing up, that never. I suffered from racism. Because they called me the Spaniard, and Spain was seen at the time as a third world European country.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So it was always, and I couldn't find a place, because when I was in France, I was called the Spaniard, and when I was in Spain, I was called the Frenchie, and Spaniards hated the French. And so there was so much, tension between both countries. There were a lot of trucks that were burnt at the borders. And, I would have 40-year-old men in Spain basically talk to me and vent with the venomous tongue, their hatred of the French. And I was 12, and I'm like looking at them, and I'm like going, "What do you want me to do about it?" And they were just going off on it, and you can see that they didn't like me. And I was 12 years old, and I had nothing to do with them.
Wow.
But it goes, through the years, and at 13, 14 years old, I get sent to the B squad in soccer because the coach doesn't like me. And the coach of the B squad loves me. And I end up having a record-breaking year. And that year, a team in the highest youth division in Paris, which has, a third division team at the pro level, which is basically the third highest level in French soccer, sees me play, and they offer me a tryout, and I go to the tryouts, and they decide to sign me. They go and they take me, and I get away from this club, and I go to a much better club, higher quality of soccer, higher competition. And now I just have to take the bus a little longer, because from the age of 7, you have to realize that my parents didn't wake up with me and drove me to, we didn't have a car. They didn't drive me to the stadium. They didn't drive me to the club or anything. And I remember vividly having my mom argue with my dad and beg him to take me to the stadium, and he wouldn't. And
Why?
so I would take
he
the
just
bus.
wouldn't take you. He just didn't want to support you, or did he just not have a means to do it?
He supported me. This is, in a nutshell, this is my dad. My dad grew up without really a dad, and with a mom that was imprisoned because she was against the Franco regime in Spain. Okay. And she was a political activist. And so what happened, what ended up happening with my daddy was, if I didn't have that luxury, my son shouldn't have that luxury, and he will learn that way.
Yep.
And so it was basically okay, and it was fine. It was totally fine for me, and it was, I would get out, and the truth of the matter is that there was a time also when my father would go and see me watch me play games, and it could be a game where I scored 3 goals or 4 goals, because at the time I was a striker. And my father would berate me in front of everyone and tell me that I sucked, and how come I missed the 3 goals or the 4 goals.
That's the focus.
That was exactly it. So I go and I keep playing, and at 11 something happens. So I'm trying to train with this better team. Scholastically, at 11, I'm getting in trouble because I'm in the streets. It's the time in Paris where there are a lot of riots because what we just witnessed in America between the police and African Americans was something that was witnessed in France between the police and Muslims. And again, deep-rooted racism there, and then the violence from the police officers, and it's never easy. There's never, it's never that clear cut, and the media plays an importance, or etc. But there were student riots, there were people riots in the streets, and my friends again came all from the projects, and I would hang out, and I started basically stealing from stores, started stealing money from my mother. I started basically getting trouble in school. And at that point, my parents decide to put my brother and myself in a boarding school. That costs much more money. It's a Jesuit boarding school, and they don't have the money to go to pay for my sister's schooling. So my sister stays in the public system, where she wasn't a good student to begin with, and at the age of 15, she stops and she takes a special degree certificate, and she starts working in a store in Rivoli Street in Paris, and she lives at home. So my dad, because she's done studying, now basically charges her a monthly rent. So she's making 500 francs, which is basically $90. And out of the $90, she has to pay $25 or $30 rent
to your father at the age of 15, because she's living at home.
Because she's living at home.
Wow!
And this is basically, a young woman who has been brought up with as much protection as she can from my mom, but with a dad who's basically telling her day in and day out, you're not smart, you're not pretty, you're not. And so the self-esteem to this day, it's absolutely brutal. And it's that's what she has. But again, I'm away, and now especially I'm at boarding
school. Right. Now you're at boarding school. Yeah.
My brother is 3 years older, and so he lived those years a little bit more. He's less. He also his self-esteem has definitely been affected, and he basically finishes his schooling, lives at home. And the moment that I finished my schooling and I was supposed to go to medical school, I had a scientific and science, what they call baccalaureate in science, math, biology, physics, and chemistry. And I just had fallen in love with America. And by watching on Tuesday nights something called the last session, La Dernière Séance, last session with a singer and an actor named Eddie Mitchell, French personality, and I just fell in love with watching the John Fords, the Sam Peckinpah, the Hitchcocks, whatever movies that they were showing on Tuesday. And I always wanted to go there. So I remember vividly walking into the kitchen in our small apartment in the projects and tell my dad when I was 17, it was the spring, and I said, Dad, I'm not going to go to medical school. I'm going to go to the States and I'm going to learn English. And he looked at me and he said, well, we don't have the money, so you better start working and do whatever you want to do. And so I started working as a bellboy at the St. James and Albany Hotel in Rivoli Street at the same time that I was studying to take my finals of my baccalaureate. And I started saving, and that was basically how I paid for my trip to the States.
Wow. And you got to meet some amazing people when you were a bellboy at that amazing place, right?
Yeah. Well, I had at first I started at St. James and Albany, which is a small hotel, maybe 3-star, 4-star hotel in Rivoli Street. And then at the end of my English program at Jacksonville University, so there were three, the program offered three possibilities. Either it was Vermont University, University of San Francisco, or Jacksonville University. So the program started, the session that I was looking at started in January. So needless to say, Vermont wasn't too appealing. Keep living in Paris. I couldn't afford the flight to San Francisco. So Jacksonville was right by the ocean and was Florida. And to me was palm trees, it was everything. So I said, this is a no-brainer. So I went to Jacksonville, and the first fascinating thing is that I had a roommate who was a surfer who had the funniest questions, because he would look at me, such a sweet guy, but in France, you guys have microwave, right? Refrigerators? You guys have refrigerators? And I would look at him and I would go like, oh my God, they must think that we're like cavemen. And then I started migrating, and my friends were not in the international program. My friends, because our dorm room was basically in the dorm room of all the athletes, it was all the African-American athletes from the basketball team.
And there so, you were, the Frenchy Spanish boy.
So imagine me, and I always like to joke, I said, I learned mnemonics before I learned English.
Of course you did. Of course
so
you did.
I had no idea and stuff, but I had the greatest time. And you know what? And that the amazing thing, and I don't think it's right for me to share that story, but I would just tell you this. To me, they were just like me. I never saw color. And and that was my point before, that I only saw the divide and the race from being here.
Yeah. And
that's the amazing thing, is that I never thought racism to me had been like basically really between whites and Muslims in France, and it was sad, but I never thought, two of my best friends were black, and to me there was no color. And maybe in a way, in the work that I do and the stories that fascinate me, this is why there are a lot of African-American stories that fascinate me, I never see color.
That's what's beautiful about you. And that is a gift. Think
I
about
don't.
how real that is to the work you're doing. You just said it. You don't see color. And so it's been a part of who you've been your whole life. You've never seen it. You see human beings as human beings that are compassion and empathy, right? And rich in character and overcoming adversity. That's what you see, Nacho. That's the person I've gotten to know you to be. You're so about the depth of the person. It has nothing to do with the outside. You've never seen the outside.
Well, I don't want to think that way, and it goes both ways. I mean, I think that there's a wealth and a richness in each one of us, and something worth discovering. And don't judge a book by its cover, right? So you want to know the person first before you pass on any judgment. And we've all been guilty of passing judgment too quickly. So I go after the college years, after spending that program at Jacksonville University and taking the tests. There's two things that happen before I go back to Paris. One is I have a very funny anecdote, or at least I thought it was funny, because I've already established I'm an idiot. So I go to the Miss JU pageant, and we had a couple of Miss Jacksonville University who ended up being Miss America, Lienza Cornett being one of them.
Oh, wow.
And then I think there was another woman by the name of Shawnee Jebia, who also was at Jacksonville. But anyway, so that year I go to the pageant, and then on the stage they call out the 5 finalists, and then finally they say, and the winner is. So because I'm an idiot, and I looked at the girls, and I thought that there was not really one girl that was like stunning to me. I go and I said number 6. So of course everyone starts laughing, and there's a little hand that knocks me in the back of my shoulder. I turn around, and there's this lovely 75 to 80-year-old lady who looks at me, maybe 75 or early 70s, because the memory might fail me there. And she says, would you mind coming to see me in my office on Monday? And I look at her, and then I turn around and ask my friend who it is, and it's Chancellor Kinney. She's the chancellor of the school.
Wow.
And I'm like, oh boy, I might have to get my plane ticket back a little earlier.
You see, you're immediately thinking it's something bad, right?
Yeah.
Right?
And yeah, absolutely. And they had seen me play soccer before. The coach of the soccer team had offered me a scholarship. I turned them down after watching them play. But now I find myself in the office of Chancellor Kinney, and she says to me, much to my surprise, we need more students like you. We need students who bring life, who bring laughter, blah, blah, blah. And she said, how would you like to come to Jacksonville University? And I said, I don't have the means. I don't have anything, though they offered me to play soccer. And she said to me, well, there is something you don't know, is that unfortunately the soccer coach, the present soccer coach, is about to be fired, and he's going to be replaced by Dennis Violet. Now, Dennis Violet is an iconic figure in soccer, especially in England, and he's a survivor of the 1958 Manchester United plane crash, which killed half the teams.
Yes, I know that story. Wow.
So he was a survivor. He was obviously iconic. He, unfortunately, Coach Violet passed away in 1997 of a brain tumor, and his ashes are basically buried in the goalmouth of Old Trafford, the stadium where Manchester United plays. So immediately, as soon as I found that out, I said, okay, then I might be interested. Mind you, I had a love-hate relationship with Coach Violet. I respected him tremendously. There were moments where I loved the man, and we were very close. His daughter played tennis. I actually reconnected with her because she lives in LA. Very kind man, but sometimes, the way he saw soccer was not the way that I played. And so I would end up being, either I was his favorite one match, and then I would end up being, in the dugout and not play, on the bench and be a sub. And then back and forth, it was all my years with him were the same way. But I learned tremendously, and I had nothing but love for the man. As frustrated as I was at times, and I'm sure he was frustrated with me too, because he saw a big guy, 6'1", 175 pounds, my senior year, and he saw many more things that I could do, and I probably wasn't giving him what he wanted. So she then asked me academically. I tell her that my finances are abysmal, and there's no way where I can pay for anything. And so they look at my transcripts, they see that I had good grades, they see what I studied, and they put a package together, whether it's financial aid, academic scholarship, and athletic scholarship, where I can basically attend the school. And I need to stay on the dean's list and stay above a 3.5 every semester. And I went for 4 years to that school. I never went to summer school, and I kept my GPA. I got a summa cum, and I missed. I got a cum laude, missed the magna cum by I think 0.2.
Oh man,
0.02. Sorry,
0.02.
But I didn't. I was broke, Holly. I was broke, so it was. I ended up tutoring students. Who were athletes. I ended up working at the library, which was the reason why many times when we had to put the books back from the cart into the rows, and it was duodecimal or the decimal way of putting books, into the shelves. The librarian would come to me and say, "Nacho, every time you work, we can't find the books." And I'm like, yeah, because half of the time I'm asleep in a catty corner with hiding. And when I put them back, I put them anywhere. But I had to make. So it was just brutal. I don't remember. And the 4 years at college, they're a blur because I had so many. I washed the laundry for the baseball team and for the volleyball team. I just had to make money. And when I lived off campus, I slept on the floor. I didn't have money to buy a bed.
This is what makes you so rich in character, Nacho.
I don't know.
This is it. Resilience, tenacity. You're fortuitous. It's all of this as to why you are who you are. I love knowing this about you. I'm learning so much I didn't know. It all makes sense, though.
It's also makes it a challenge. You try bringing a date home and say, "Let's sleep on the floor."
Well, now you're right. That's not going to go over so well. And it's just kind of
especially when you can't say, "We'll stare at the stars. We'll be romantic."
We're going to stare at the stars because there's nowhere else to look.
No, you'll stare at the cracked ceiling.
You are so. And to think, wait. Think about how your world came full circle and who you married and how your life is very magical, right? It's amazing. That's why you don't take anything for granted. I totally get now so much about you. It's what makes you incredible. Now I want to know, okay, so you've working your tail off, right? Literally not sleeping, getting yourself through and still holding a very, very high standard and meeting those standards in college. And then you get out and you just start doing your passion. I mean, it sounds like you actually were hired by a French producer and a production company, and you've started to now do TV. I mean, tell us, take us from there to, I want to hear all about the movie that, another one of your pride and joys.
Well, I'll tell you quickly 1 second, and this is maybe for another show and stuff, but that would be the fun part. In the summers, I would basically absolutely preserve the month of August for training and to get back in shape because I pride myself of being in shape and being the best I could be as an athlete. But in May, June, and July, I need to make some money to have money to go back to the States. So the second year, I dropped my resume at the Ritz Hotel in Paris, the same hotel where Lady Di basically was seen coming out before the tragic accident.
Wow.
And I worked for 3 summers there. And I was offered the position of night concierge, which at that point the head concierge said, had I accepted, I would have been the youngest concierge in the history of the Ritz, which is a rich history.
Wow.
But I loved it, and I have so many stories. So that's what you were saying. I have so many stories and people that I met through that, because I always felt like, it wasn't just a job. To me, it was a way to meet people, to better my English. And I didn't know who I was meeting. And I would maybe share one story with you, and then we'll go to to post Jacksonville University. So I'm working the door at the Ritz Hotel. So I've got my uniforms, I've got my gloves, and this gentleman walks in with some glasses, with some circular glasses, and walks into the lobby, and he's immediately stopped by security, who tells him, "You cannot go any further. You're wearing jeans."
Ooh.
And the gentleman says, and at that point there was a strict rule at the Ritz Hotel that you were forbidden to wear jeans inside the hotel. And the gentleman says, "But I stay here. I'm a guest." He goes, "Sir, you cannot be in this hotel with jeans." And they're about to throw him out. So I intervene. I go to the security guard who I know, and I said, I actually brought bags for this guest, so I can tell you he's with us. And he says, "Well, tell him," because obviously his English was poor. He says, "Tell him that he cannot wear jeans, otherwise he cannot be at the hotel." So I explained that to the gentleman. For the following 4 days, this gentleman, every time that we'd be waiting for a friend or anyone, would go and would chat with me. And he was very friendly, telling me, "Oh, where did you learn your English?" And we just, have, however, whatever relationship, friendship or not friendship, but it was very kind. And on the last day, I'm working now the phones, which are not far from the door, because we would rotate between bellboys. I'm working the phones, and he's looking for me, and he comes up to me and he says, "I'm leaving. I just wanted to thank you for everything." And he brings me a pen, which is a pretty large, almost hand-sized pen. And in the back of it, he signs it for Nacho, and he signs. And then he says, "Do you have a piece of paper?" And I go,
boy.
"Sure. Here's a piece of paper." And I give him a regular blank piece of paper, and he draws something on me. At this point, I'm telling you, the only artists I knew were basically from, the Bugs Bunnies and the Daffy Ducks and Disney and Mickey Mouse. I don't know anything about art. I don't know anything about. I'm not as educated as my wife is and her family as far as contemporary art or anything. So he draws something. He gives it to me. I thank him. We hug. He leaves. The end of the summer, I have to clean up my locker. I look at the pen. I love the pen. I'm going to keep it. And then the piece of paper, I'm like, I don't know what to do with it. And I think I threw it out. Long story short, the gentleman who I befriended during his stay was none other than Keith Haring.
Seriously. And you had no idea.
I had no idea. And so my wife, to this day, and to everyone who knows me, and now you're included, they were like, "You're the biggest idiot. You threw a piece of paper that is probably worth $10,000 or $15,000, and you kept the pen."
You kept the pen and not the paper. Nacho! Oh,
and it's there. It's in my office, and it says, "For Nacho, Keith Haring."
Oh, Nacho. This is hilarious. And I love that is how you met so many people, and probably most of them, you had no idea who it was. You were just taking care of them as though they were another wonderful person.
It didn't matter who they were. I mean, some right. I knew exactly who they were and stuff, but I still did the job. I mean, I remember being absolutely led on by Ivanka Trump, and I stayed. So you work by shifts, right? 7 to 3, and then from 3 to 11. And one day I was finished at 11, and I stayed until probably like 12:30 or almost 1 o'clock, because Ivana Trump, sorry, not Ivanka, Ivana Trump, President Trump's ex-wife.
Yes.
Needed her bags, and she was waiting for bags and for luggage, etc. "Can you please stay?" And here's this woman literally in her negligee in a room when I walk in. She goes, "Oh, please come back. We're going to have more bags and stuff. And I'm going to take care of you when you leave." And I stayed an extra 2 hours. And by the time we finished and I brought her last bag, she basically was in bed. And I don't think even she said thank you. And that's it. Oh. And I remember working 2 extra hours. And yeah, you bummed, because at this point you're working in a hotel and you expect, even if it's 20 francs or 40 francs or something, as a tip.
Yeah.
Especially when it's someone you don't expect it from. If no one gives you that. But if someone says, "Come back, I'm going to take care of you," then you're hoping, because the truth of the matter, our salary, and that's one thing that's great about France and working there, is that we have a salary. So we don't survive on tips. However, we made, let's say that I think I was paid $1,400 a month, which was really, really, really a great salary for a bellboy. So I was paid $1,400 a month, and I probably would double that in tips.
Wow. And you're right. Back to that story. It's the person that can afford to give the nice tip and you stay extra for. It's not that it was nobody, somebody that you knew that couldn't afford it. It's amazing to me, when anybody listening to this, like, think about all those serendipitous moments in your lifetime when you look back on stories like the one that Nacho just shared. Like, I love that you're like, you had no idea who that was, but it didn't matter to you because you treat every person like they're a king or a queen. It didn't matter that you didn't know who it was. I mean, afterwards, yes, you're like, oh my goodness, this piece of paper could be worth a lot of money. But at the time, it's reminding me, Nacho, of when I was a cruise director. One of the greatest, I'll never forget the captain and them sitting me down and talking to me and saying, so when we embark people, you'll have the VIP list. You'll love this story, Nacho, because it really impacted my life for the rest of my life. And here I am, 20 years old, right? Living halfway across the world. And they said to me, you need to memorize the VIP list. These are all the people that will be VIPs coming on board. And I remember, just as innocent as can be and really ignorance, I said, why are these people more special than everybody else? Don't these people, everybody coming on, they've spent, for some people, a life's fortune. This is like a 50th wedding anniversary, right? A special. And they looked at me and they said, well, yeah, you're correct, but these are more dignitaries or whoever. And I said, well, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, everybody's VIP. And that moment really changed my life to make me realize that every human being is a VIP in how we treat them. And that story you just shared just exemplifies how you are with everybody you're around. It's why everybody loves you.
Well, thank you, but I think that you're absolutely right. We share. That's one of the things why you and I connect and agree, and we're kindred souls when it comes to that, because. I'll share then two other stories that probably I think maybe you would appreciate. I don't know if your listeners will, but a couple. I'm working so at the Ritz, and a couple walks in, Americans, unknown, absolutely, or at least nondescript, and the man leads his wife into the lobby. The wife is in tears and she's absolutely berating him in the lobby in front of everyone everyone dismay, all the eyes are on them, right? And she basically says, if you cannot find this bag, this is it. I'm done. I'm divorcing you. And she storms off. God. And he stays behind, and he's absolutely devastated. And of course, because I'm so shy, I walk over to him and I said, excuse me, sir, is there anything I can do to help? And he looks at me and he's absolutely distraught. And he tells me, I messed up. I forgot a bag in our cab, and there's no way we can find the cab. There's no way we can do anything. So I just look at him and I said, can you just tell me, do you remember anything about the cab, the color? And can you tell me where when you took the cab? And he tells me, I don't remember now the address or anything. And I said, okay, I'll see if I can do anything. So he walks in. Unbeknownst to me, he was at the hotel because there was a scientific conference and convention, and he was one of the guest speakers. So I walk in and I use the time for my lunch, and I start making calls. And I call every single taxi company, and I basically say, anybody remembers, taking a couple of Americans at this place, et cetera, et cetera. Finally, a taxi company tells me that they remember, and one of the drivers says that there's a bag in their car, but they cannot swing by the Ritz. I have to basically go and meet him at a certain spot and stuff. So I go, I take my wallet, I take my whatever time I had left for my lunchtime, and I go meet the cab, and I grab the bag, go back to the Ritz Hotel. I find the gentleman at the dais just preparing his speech. And as I walk in, he looks at me and he starts bawling. Oh, no. And I just go and I give him the bag. He gives me a huge tip. He falls in my arms. He said, you saved my marriage. And I was like, and that was to me, That was, it was my job. I just made them happy, and he made me happy. I really believe that sometimes you start the healing with the giving.
Oh, wait. I don't want anyone to miss that. Sometimes you start the healing with the giving. I've got the goosies all over my body. That was profound. Oh, Nacho.
So that was the second story. Is this? I'm assigned as to a famous performer at the hotel, and her name is Madonna, and it's
yes,
during the
Madonna.
Blonde Ambition tour. The hotel is absolutely jam packed outside. Everyone is screaming, etc., etc. And I'm assigned to her, so every day I bring them messages, flowers, etc. And we basically have this courteous relationship, and she asked me, how are you? And, who are you? How do you know how to speak English? And I tell her, the same spiel. Where I go to school, etc. And one day, and I do the no, because two of the other bellboys who work with me and my sister asked me, can you please get an autograph? So mind you, at this point, there's a picture in the newspaper that comes out. As she's coming out, I'm there holding her bags. So now I actually need security to take me from the back of the hotel, from the back door, to the subway.
Really?
Because there's actually girls basically sometimes who are pulling on my windbreaker and telling me, you don't understand, you speak to her, you see her, you just like, and I'm like,
wow.
and I don't know, and somewhere, somehow you think like you're all that, right? So yeah, you're like, it's absolutely, it's overwhelming, but at the same time, you're like, yeah, I do. And so you're just silly. But what happens is that one night, so I ask her one day, I just, hopefully thinking that nothing will ever go back to the powers to be. And I asked her for the autographs. And she says, sure, I'll give them to you tomorrow. The next day, she's in some mood. I bring her flowers. I bring her the papers. She opens the door.
Oh, no.
Mind you, the first day she opened the door, she was wearing a see-through pajama. I remember dropping the papers. And I picked them up. I'm like, I don't know. I look like a stuttering idiot. and I just give her everything, etc. So now she's upset. She grabs everything. She closes the door, and I go, well, there goes the autographs. Following day, she goes and she calls me in. She says, come in. I bet you thought I forgot. And she opens a drawer. She gives me postcards and autographs, pictures and stuff. And then she said, what do you think of the show? And I'm like,
no.
I haven't seen the show. I've been working or anything. And she says, nonsense. You go see Freddie the Man, and we're going to get you a pass for you to see the show. So the following night, I only get one ticket, only get one pass for me. And I go see the show. And I'm at the T-shirt stand or the concession stand to buy T-shirts for my sister and for a friend. And there's a hand that knocks me in the back. I turn around and I recognize some guests from the Ritz Hotel. The gentleman is an American who tells me, we bought two tickets to the show, and my wife is an absolute diehard fan of Madonna. And the tickets we bought, we were told that they were like the best seats in the house, and they're the nosebleeds. And my wife is in tears. Can you do anything for me? And I'm like,
oh no,
I'm a bellboy at the Ritz. What do you want me to do? It's my off time. But I don't know what came over me, Holly. I just looked at them. I go, oh, no, let's go get your wife. And so I have this VIP pass that's hanging from my neck, and then we go get the wife. Oh, no, and I said, follow me. And I don't know what came over me, right? The audacity and the stupidity of me to do what I just did. I walk towards a VIP. There are two giant security guards that are mending the door. And I whip out my wallet. I take out my bellboy employee card from the Ritz Hotel.
The bellboy
and I just flash it. I flash it like I'm the CEO of Apple, or I'm like whatever, or the FBI, head of FBI, and I said to them, Madonna's bellboy, they're with me.
You did not. Wait, I've got goosies again. This is a great story.
They parted ways. I swear to God, they parted ways.
Oh my
We
God, Nacho.
walked right in. They saw the concert,
awesome.
and they had the time of their lives. They took me back home, gave me a nice tip, took me back home in a limo, which I told them, you got to park right here. You can't go any further because otherwise that limo is going to get absolutely vandalized. But that's it. And he said, you don't understand. You made our night.
Oh,
my wife, you'll never forget. I mean, we were on the VIP seats, with other celebrities and stuff. And I enjoyed the concert. It was one of the best concerts alongside the one Bruce Springsteen, who's my favorite. But it was just, and to me, that was it. That's all it is. If you can help someone and he doesn't take food away from your table and from your family, help him.
Yes. Yes. And I love the way you just said that. You never stop. It's just who you've been your whole life. And I've no wonder you and David are so close and there's so much similarities. It's this, you choose to live your life coming from such a core of humility and grace and giving, and it's endless. And so Nacho, before we wrap this up, because we're going to have to wrap this up, and I'm wondering if we do a part 2 series. I'm almost feeling like we need to do another podcast because there's so much more I want to ask you. I just need you to share with everybody. I'll never forget watching the short that you wrote, you directed, and you produced, the true story, Mama.
Yes.
Tell us about that quickly, will you? Because I want people, if they can, I don't even know how they can get a hold of it if they can, but tell us that story and why you were so passionate about that. I love this.
Well, absolutely. Well, thank you for bringing that up. And I'm totally open. I love you to death. I love your family, but I love you and Stephen and anything. And part 2, I'm up for part 2, part 3. Your viewers might be texting right as we speak saying, please no, this guy doesn't shut up.
Well, we'll air this here soon. It's not going out live yet. Don't worry. There's no texting yet.
But I would tell you that. So I think it was back in 1999. At that point, I just met my wife and we had started dating. And there was a story in the New York Post about a 9-year-old boy who had basically been discovered living with a secret and with his mom during 30 days. I can't divulge too much of it, otherwise I give it away. But I was a journalist from a trade by trade, and so my wife and her friend, who were basically helping the kid, asked me and fly me down to Memphis to meet with him, and so I meet Travis and I meet the grandmother, and I start walking around the projects where he lived, and I'm fascinated by his story and by obviously his courage and the love that he had for his mother. I have a relationship that is very, very, very. I had a relationship that was very, very close with my mother. I think she was a saint, and she was the epitome of what a mother should be. And so, back after shooting All Creatures Here Below, I want to step back behind the camera after 20-year hiatus. And I'm trying to write shorts, and they're all coming out either too long, I have too many things to say or anything. And then basically I'm struggling, and in a matter of 45 minutes, I sit at my computer and I write Mama, and which is basically knowing that I wouldn't have the rights of the story. I inspired everything by that story, and I write basically the same story, but taking place in Phoenix and in a trailer. And really, it's an ode, an homage to from a boy to his mother. And I really did it for the mother. I was lucky enough to have the experience of having a great producer, a great DP, the crew that was incredible. They made the shoot the best possible, and then I was blessed by this little actor named Maceo Smedley, who was 9 years old at the time, who was a gift, so talented. He made things so easy, so professional. Then we had a dog. We did everything. The show was watched by some executive at Showtime. And so you can watch the short, which is 15 minutes and 42 seconds on the Showtime platform. It still airs on Showtime. You got to look for it. And sometimes it's early on the East Coast, I think 6 or 7 a.m. But otherwise, you can basically look for it on the Showtime platform streaming.
And just spell the name of it. So when people want to go find that, spell it for us.
Momma.
That's what I thought. Okay. And I've seen it. You sent it to me, and it was, again, I sat there with tears and goosebumps in 15 minutes, the way you shared this story. And it's just amazing. And is this the beginning of, are you going to be doing a series like this? Is this kind of a trilogy that you're focusing on now?
I'm actually with it is the beginning of a trilogy because I wanted to do something about loss. And so there's another short which right now I found a great feature called Victory Drive, written by a very talented African American girl, Harvard graduate who comes from nothing, from Atlanta, and she wrote a beautiful script with whom on which I worked with her for the last 6 months. It's at a good place, so now we're trying to look the right. We're trying to find the right producer and financial partner. It's $1.5 or $2 million. We're shooting in Atlanta, so it's that or a second short called The Trunk, which is basically now would be the story of a father after the loss of his son. So again, it's about the loss.
Yeah.
So one was the loss of a mother, the other one is the loss of a son, and then the trilogy ends up with basically, and I think it'll be a great way to end this. I think for your show, I met a gentleman by the name of Ben and Kelly Petrick in mid 2000 or late 2008, 9 or 10, I forget. Ben was one of the most promising baseball players in Major League Baseball. He was drafted straight out of high school by the Colorado Rockies. His father was a god to him, and his father and his mother were saints, really, especially the mom. But Ben was diagnosed at the age of 21. He was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and he played for 5 years in the big leagues without telling a soul, chasing the elusive contract that would bring stability, financial stability to his family, because they came from very, very humble backgrounds. And so this is the story of a man who loses all physical ability. That's the loss. So that's my trilogy where I want to be. This is my baby. I signed a contract that I should never sign, that no producer in Hollywood would ever sign with anyone buying rights. But Ben changed my life. The way that you said that, when you were director of in the cruise ship, you had this moment of epiphany. To me, meeting Ben made me a better father and changed perspective, because I said, this is a man who at 21 was a gifted athlete, was so strong. And at the age of 32, he can't even hold his daughter. And yet everything that he does is for his daughter, but he's flawed. There's a lot of Parkinson's is an illness that is very tricky. It absolutely shames you. It absolutely makes you become a recluse and want to be absolutely separated from society. And he was blessed to have a girlfriend who is now his wife, who was 16, 17 when they started dating, and they're still together. And you got to think that, she has Parkinson's by osmosis almost, because, she lives with someone, and it was absolutely brutal. So my goal is, I wrote a script called Uncommon, and I think that I'm maybe one draft away, but I know exactly now, I know the story that I want to say, that I want to tell. And that would be my dream. My dream would be to shoot this movie, because I think that the world needs to know about Ben, about the courage and the love story between a father and his daughter, a husband and his wife, and a son with his father, because his father was diagnosed 6 months before him with Parkinson's. And so the doctors thought that then maybe there was a link, they could find something. And they were basically paraded like almost circus clowns, because they thought they could basically, find a cure. And they could never find it. They could never do anything. And it's debilitating and devastating.
And you know what? This is exactly why you are bringing to life true stories. And I know a lot of it is around loss. It's what can loss do to give you so much to gain. You're showcasing these stories. And I firmly believe, Nacho, the timing is so divine right now for you and your passion of the stories you're bringing to life. Because I think our country, our globe is hungry. We are hungry and starving to hear real stories about real people that are surviving, overcoming, thriving, right? And it means producers like you and writers like you and like my brother, people that are willing to, as I call it, when you heal, when you reveal, you heal, when you peel back the layers of the onion, and you're doing that over and over. And I just want every listener to know this, you are a gift, and continue to follow your passion, Nacho, because you're bringing us gifts and we get to experience it on screen that moves us, rattles us, and gives us hope and inspiration. And I just love you to pieces. I just love you to pieces.
Same here. Thank you. I mean, listen, I have a long way to go. I have a lot to better and better myself, better my project, better my writing. But I would tell you that your character gets exposed when you're on a bended knee, and it's never at the highest. It's never at the highest that the flaws are going to come out. So just humility is key, and understanding that the cliche is always it's how you get back up.
Yes. It is. It's such a cliche, and yet it's so true, right? Mm-hmm. So would you tell everybody, I mean, honestly, if people want to reach out to you, what is the best way? Do you want them reaching out to you on social media? Can you just tell our listeners if they want to learn more about your movies? Maybe there's somebody listening that has money that wants to put into a movie. You never know, right? Like this could end up being a really serendipitous moment, but just how best for people to reach out to you?
Listen, I have no problem. So I don't have a Twitter account. I have an Instagram account, which is private, but all they need to know, maybe they can reach out to me. I mean, I'll know. And there's a mention maybe of you. But I have no problem. So my handle on Instagram is Arenas_Nacho. And there's a picture of my mom as my profile, and then my email. It's not like I get 100,000 emails. So my email is narinas26@icloud.com. If you want, I'll also share David Desmarchin's email, which is no. I'm just joking.
I know. Wait, he will have us.
He'd be killing me.
He would kill you. And then he would kill me too. We'd be like, "What did you two just do? What's happening?" But we do want to give another shout out because the timing of this is going to be great because the movie is also going to be going back to the start of our call. But All Creatures Here Below is also going to be on video on demand too, right, Nacho?
Correct. So we have what's called a day-to-date. So the movie will be released on theaters on May 17th and also on VOD on May 17th. So look for it. You can also already look for the trailer on iTunes, and you will look for the movie on iTunes on May 17th. Again, I'm tremendously grateful to everyone involved. To all the actors, Karen Gillan, obviously David Desmarchin, Colin Chifley. I'm grateful to Jennifer Morrison, John Doe, David Cockner, everyone, Richard Cabral, everyone who helped, every single member of the crew, Post, Photocam, who helped us, Monkeyland. There's so many people, Amy and Chris, just so blessed with everyone who helped. And obviously, Samuel Goldwyn Films.
Yes.
I'm so grateful and thankful for them. And go see it. Go be part of the journey. Bring tissues and be ready to be moved. But have an open heart and welcome Ruby and Jensen and take that journey with them. It will be challenging, but it'll be worth it.
I love that. When you said you will be moved, I was going to add to that, you will be moved and you will be frozen all at the same time, right?
Absolutely. You know what? What a more fitting way, especially after having spoken about Parkinson's, which is exactly about this. It's about, moving and freezing. Yes. And Parkinson's, and people don't know. People always think that they see, unfortunately, Michael J. Fox, and they see he's kind of like his movement, his scattered movements and his undulations. with the arms, the neck, etc. They don't know that that's a side effect called dyskinesia that comes from the medication, because Parkinson's is actually a freezing illness, and your body freezes.
How perfect that we're ending on that note. So such a cliche to say, get ready to be moved and frozen, but that is exactly the story behind your next movie. And it will be produced. You will have this out there. I can't wait to hear Ben's story. I remember you sharing this with us at dinner about 2 years ago. And so, Nacho, thank you for being here today. Thank you for the gift of giving me the privilege of celebrating you for all you are in this world, and to everyone that loves you. Thank you,
Ali,
Nacho.
you're so kind, and it was a pleasure, and I'm so grateful that you gave me this platform, and I'm here whenever you want. And I think that you're a gift to the world, and you're just people heal through your podcast and through your work. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, my dear. We'll see you soon. Yeah.
See you soon. Bye.
Thank you for joining me for another awesome celebration of you. If you were inspired by this story, please share it with your family and friends and hashtag Your Story Matters. I'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment on iTunes. And absolutely, please come to my website, hollydowling.com. Leave a comment there too, and while you're there, pick up your free gift. Most importantly, though, just remember that your life is a gift from God. What you do with it is your gift back.